Let's fear! Ugly Sonic in the Chip and Dale movie? Let's go!
Fear. This is going to be a shorter one because I didn't bring my camera down on this impromptu trip to Kirk, so I have to use my phone camera.
We also did not think we were making a weird episode. We just watched Chip and Dale and then said, we need to balance this out.
Yeah. It's not that Chip and Dale is bad.
No.
I can see why the internet is enjoying it. It's
just
a fine movie.
It's just very, very middle of the road.
Let's put it this way. If this movie was not a Chip and Dale movie, the water bottle is in the way of me, I feel. If this movie was not a Chip and Dale movie, would that matter to anyone's enjoyment of the movie? I don't think it would.
No.
This could be a movie about a made-up pair of former action stars, detective characters who, this premise has been done before.
Yes.
Actors who played detectives having to solve an actual mystery. I can think of numerous things that have done that premise better. There's a great...
That the premise of Barry?
No, the premise of Barry is a hitman wants to be an actor.
Okay, well, we'll say so.
But it's almost kind of like flipping it. But I was thinking of there's this movie on Netflix that I watched years back called Mindhorn that is a pretty obscure movie very British movie about this guy who played like a pulpy like almost kids detective show character who's now like a washed up kind of BoJack-esque actor who like isn't doing anything anymore, and then he has to solve an actual mystery. That's a way better version of this. Chip and Dale in this movie are the worst part of the Chip and Dale movie.
Yeah, cause
they
tie into a bigger issue where it's just the writing of this movie is really bad.
It's just It's like written by members of the Lonely Island, and you can kind of tell because in a lot of ways it feels like it's written like a long series of YouTube sketches,
yes,
rather than with like a really threadbare narrative connecting them. The mystery is not very interesting. They
figure out the answer to the mystery like in the very first scene.
Comparing it to Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
There's like
Who Framed Roger Rabbit has such a solid, well put together noir storyline.
Who killed X?
Chip and Dale has there was never a moment where I was really trying to solve the mystery. I was just enjoying the quirkiness of the world, because basically the common thread is both movies are doing like cartoon characters exist in real life, but Chip and Dale is taking a much more modern referential approach to it, but it's also not just shoving references down your throat. There's some creativity to how the references are put in, like the whole Uncanny Valley section where they're going to investigate this like sketch area of
the
town.
Best thing about this movie are all the visual gags.
Yeah, all the best gags are visual because the writing is not as good as the visual comedy concept idea.
Yeah, there's so many great jokes, like the Uncanny Valley.
The Uncanny Valley being a town where all the people with the weird Polar Express animation style go to.
They describe it as realistic enough to look realistic, but not realistic enough to not look uncanny.
Yeah, or even simple things like the detective, or not the detective, or simple things like the police chief being a stop motion putty character,
and because he's made of rubber, he'll cut pieces off of himself or stretch his body.
Yeah, which minor spoilers here, if you care. Jump forward 30 seconds and we'll be done talking
also
about
he's played by J.K. Simmons.
Yeah, he's played by...
Who, even though this character gets nothing, still manages to kill it.
Well, he kills it because, spoiler that I was going to talk about, he becomes a twist and villain halfway through.
They're literally I know! The oldest cliche in the book!
Well, but that's what he takes the kind of hokey, self-referential writing and makes it sound funnier than it is.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's this rubber putty guy makes the fight scene between him and the one live-action human character who's a lower-level cop who is really not her performance is not very good.
No,
you can tell
that's-
you can tell she's interacting with nothing but green screens. I think that's the problem. Is this movie also doesn't, like we said, the visual gags are good. The movie doesn't look very good.
No.
Chip, like all the 2D characters look awkward because they did this weird cell shading, like.
Well, because Chip, because all of the Rescue Rangers, they're not actually 2D. They're cell shaded 3D,
because
which doesn't look bad on its own.
But the problem is Disney doesn't have any of their amazing 2D animators left. So what they have left making this straight to streaming movie are their like CGI B team. So it never looks as good as like Who Framed Roger Rabbit or even Looney Tunes Back in Action.
No.
Like,
and like the background characters who are 2D, they look fine.
Yeah.
Like they look like they belong. They look like they belong there about as well as anyone else in this movie.
But it's just like
something about the way the main characters are animated is just very, very bizarre.
Yeah, it just doesn't like look right. So it's like it's cool to see all these melding of all these different styles.
I mentioned,
but when it doesn't,
it reminds me of like not like the recent 3D anime trend, but like the old 3D anime trend, like when 3D anime was first starting to come out.
Yeah.
When like they didn't understand how to do 3D anime, so they just used all the old anime techniques and like old anime style without understanding that doesn't translate
they're
well
trying
into
to
3D.
ape the Disney. So the way this works is Chip is in 2D,
What?
Dale is in 3D, and this is years after they've been in their show. I guess we should explain the basic premise of the show. That in this, Chip and Dale are actors who played characters on the show Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers.
But then Dale was getting a pilot for a spy show.
The breakup
so that
for them,
causes them to break up.
The breakup for them is like one scene. It's the most cliche boilerplate breakup reason imaginable. And making these characters actors who were in a show when they were younger robs them of any characterization really that they could have plucked from the show, and instead leaves them as these blank slate characters where Chip's supposed to be the jaded, sardonic one.
But he's not very jaded and he's not very sardonic.
And Dale's supposed to be the, like, stuck-up, washed-up Hollywood celebrity. But he's not very stuck-up and he's not very washed-up. He's just kind of obnoxious and, like...
And Chip's just kind of an asshole.
And, neither of the characters are cynical enough for it to be, like, a BoJack-type washed up, or even this character from Mindhorn, this other movie I've seen. They're not even as jaded or washed up as he is.
It's like Disney is afraid to give these characters actual flaws. They just want to give them like implied flaws.
Yeah, and together they just kind of go on this detective story that feels very Detective Pikachu, but less interesting. Which Detective Pikachu already kind of has Detective Pikachu already has the problem where the most interesting part is not the mystery, but seeing all the Pokemon. And this movie has that, but even worse. Where the most interesting part is seeing all the cameos and animation style. Ugly Sonic is in the movie, which I'm sure you see all over social media.
I can't believe Ugly Sonic is like one of the best parts of the
Ugly
movie.
Sonic gets more screen time than some of the Rescue Rangers.
He's in 3 scenes.
He's in more scenes than Gadget is.
Yeah.
Like,
he's on screen more than Gadget
is. And it's just like, this movie doesn't... And I'm not like a Chip and Dale fan. I've never seen the show.
I don't even think... I've seen a couple of episodes, but I don't think I've seen it all the way through.
It's almost like, why even use Chip and Dale and the Rescue Rangers for this movie where absolutely nothing about it demands that they use Chip and Dale the Rescue Rangers. Like I said, they could have just made up detective characters.
And their personalities, from what I can tell, are nothing like they are in the show.
I mean, maybe they are, but it's just like, it's the most dumbed down boilerplate versions of like a noir, like buddy cop. It's less noir and more buddy cop, but not like the writing's not quite funny enough.
Like Tango and Cash or something.
Yeah. And then like this other thing that irritates me, where it's like the YouTube writing really kicking in, is the amount of times that this movie does the pause the background music for a punchline moment. That can be really funny when it's done right. This movie does it for like
I think there's
half
one in
its
every
joke.
scene.
There's one like every scene, and it starts to become, okay, this is just a laugh track without a laugh track.
Yeah.
Like you're setting me up to laugh at something that usually isn't very funny. Usually it's a lame quip. It really highlights the like Marvel quippiness of this movie.
I like the one joke where it's like Seth Rogen meeting all the other Seth Rogen characters.
Okay, it's funny because that joke seems so bad in the trailer. It's Seth Rogen Lion King Warthog interacting with Seth Rogen Axe Warrior from the Uncanny Valley, who's actually like the henchman of the bad guy.
Yeah.
But then the joke actually is funny in the movie because like two more animated Seth Rogen
and then, like,
characters
two
pop
more
up,
after that.
and it's just like, oh, all right, okay, that's
and then
pretty
it
funny.
says with them all laughing at him.
But even these they all laugh. But again, even these jokes that are funny, they don't add any substance to the movie. This is an extremely substanceless movie. Even more so than like Marvel movies. It's not substanceless to the point of being awful, like Space Jam 2.
Yeah.
Space Jam 2 is still the absolute bottom of the barrel for ad movies.
It's like Space Jam 2, then like Wreck-It Ralph 2.
Yeah, well, is Wreck-It Ralph 2? I don't think Wreck-It Ralph 2 is
Wreck-It Ralph 2
lower
isn't
than Space
bad.
Jam 2, but
It's just a complete insult to Wreck-It Ralph 1.
Yeah. And I would argue Space Jam 2 is not as much of an insult because Space Jam 1 is not as good as Wreck-It Ralph is.
Yeah.
So it's not as much of a quality drop. But anyway, we've already talked about Space Jam 2 plenty. This is just, we're going through the cavalcade of these other animation live-action hybrid movies that are all better than Space Jam 2. But Chip and Dale is the worst. Chip and Dale is 5 out of 10.
Yeah.
In its truest
5
form.
out of 10. This movie is 5 out of 10 personified.
Yeah.
There are parts of it that work. There are parts of it that really
There are
don't.
good jokes.
There's
cool
parts of it
ideas.
that just fall in the middle. And then if you all average it out, it's all just right.
I've already kind of forgotten a lot of the movie, and I will continue to forget it. What
about Peter Pan? Is the
Peter Pan grown up old man? Why is he grown up? I didn't know the animated characters grew up.
Even though the other animated characters
Don't seem to grow up. Yeah, at one point they run into a lost boy, and he hasn't grown up. It's like, what?
So did he just choose to grow up? Did he think he was going to get better roles if he tried growing up?
He gives a ham-fisted backstory monologue that is so, like, bare bones, like, we need to get to this. The whole movie feels like, plot-wise, like, we need to get to this point in the story.
This point.
Like,
they set up the basic structure of the plot and then forgot to add the meat that
because they were
out.
too busy adding jokes, which range from
kind of funny
from falling flat
funny.
to most of the best jokes are visual gags rather than dialogue that was added in.
Like, I can't remember what it exactly is, but, like, yeah, I remember there's, like, a weird visual gag, like, I think, in, like, the scene where, like, Chip or Dale are introduced.
Yeah, man, I see it. That's what I've already forgotten most of the visual gags, which is not a good sign. Like, there's just not much to... This movie's gonna be internet buzz for, like, 3 weeks, and by the time I upload this Fear podcast, it will not be internet buzz anymore.
Yeah.
Because
we continue to not be in the algorithm.
I mean, I wouldn't want Chip and Dale to be the thing that gets us in the algorithm anyway.
Sam.
Like, the fact that it's a straight to streaming movie is perfect because this movie is enjoyable enough that if you have a night in and you're looking for something to watch, might as well put it on. And you have Disney Plus, might as well put it on. But if this was a theatrical movie, I could not recommend that you go see it.
Yeah.
I would not recommend that you would go see it.
There are better uses of your dollar
Yeah.
than watching this movie in theaters.
Yeah.
Like, for instance...
It's funny, from the trailers of Chip and Dale, I thought it was either going to be awful. You thought it was going to be awful. I thought it had a chance of being good. It ended up being like in this... the thing I did not think it was going to be was mediocre. The trailers made it look either really bad or really good, and it ended up just being like right in the middle. Also, a lot of the best like jokes or things were kind of spoiled by trailers. So like the Uncanny Valley thing was frequently in the trailers.
The main villain
was in the main villain saying, "I was always more of an Alvin and the Chipmunks fan." Even his scheme to like combine characters together to make like the bootleg movies aspect wasn't spoiled, which is a fun like aspect of the plot of like, oh, bootleg movies in this universe are just cartoon trafficking.
That was funny.
But like even the like molding of the characters together at the end to create like a big monster was like that was in the trailer.
Yeah.
In some of the trailers. And that's what it's just that shows how substanceless the movie is, that the trailers had to rely on a significant amount of the movie's visual gags just to like market the movie. I will say the marketing didn't spoil Ugly Sonic. The internet did that.
Yeah.
The internet did that with constant everywhere on my
Ugly
feed.
Sonic
Every
scenes?
Ugly Sonic scene in Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. Every 100 plus this is the perfect YouTuber movie.
Yeah. That's why it's blowing up on YouTube. It's perfect for YouTubers.
It's not like the perfect. It is kind of the perfect ad movie, but more than that, it's just the perfect YouTube algorithm.
Okay, wait. There's one really good joke we forgot to mention. The Muppet going.
Oh yeah. Cop. Okay, the Muppet. That whole sequence of the movie. This is weirdly enough. This is a common element between this and like a lot of the stuff we watched for the last episode of the Fear podcast, like the anime episode we were doing, where this movie has the shared with like a lot of those movies we were watching, where it just kind of gets more bland the longer it goes on.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of fun when they're investigating and they're talking to this Muppet who's like, oh, I'm a Muppet.
After they meet Sweet Pete, they're like,
Sweet Pete.
They know who the villain is.
He
what his plan
explains
is.
everything. Like,
so all they have to do now is just catch him.
Yeah, because it's not a very well structured mystery story because the writing is so point A to point B bare bones.
You know what is a good mystery story?
Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
I was gonna say SpongeBob, but
we can talk about the SpongeBob. That technically is an interaction of live action and animation, and we did watch that movie, so we can talk about
the very few scenes where there's an interaction of live action and animation.
I mean, to be fair, their interaction fucking pops off. Child me learning that Shell Shitty. The twist of Shell City being a gift shop, and then them like. The SpongeBob movie is just so excellent. I don't even want to talk about it for that long because if you've seen it, you know it's excellent.
Like
it's the absolute best like TV show.
It's the only
transition.
It's the only it's like you said it earlier, like when we were watching it. Like it's like the only TV to movie transition that like not only matches the quality of the show, but in some ways supersedes it.
It doesn't feel like an hour and a half episode, and it doesn't feel like something completely removed from the source material, like Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, for example.
Yeah.
It's just like it's a perfect like it takes SpongeBob, which is a very episodic show, and develops the characters through a movie.
Yeah.
Like it does what a movie should do over an episodic.
But it also isn't the type of thing that you can only watch if you're a fan.
Yeah.
All of the
characters.
Like within the first scene, like all of the characters are well established.
It's so good at showing. It does what any great 90-minute kids movie should do, where it's so great at establishing things quickly, giving you short, brief, snappy interactions that tell you everything you need to know about these characters.
It just hits
the opening dream sequence SpongeBob has tells you everything you need to know about SpongeBob's world.
How he sees himself, how he wants to be, how he sees the people around him.
Yeah. And then Patrick, everybody else is just as succinctly and perfectly introduced. Plankton, Mr. Krabs, Squidward, Patrick. The rest of the SpongeBob characters are there, but they're not really important to this story. That's another strength, I think, especially compared to later SpongeBob movies. I haven't seen the newest one.
Yeah.
But they really focus in on SpongeBob and Patrick on a journey. They don't try to include every SpongeBob character and make the story about everyone.
But they're all there, so that you still get to see them and get to have fun jokes with them.
Squidward still gets enough screen time to be distinct as a character. Mr. Krabs...
Sandy and Miss Puff have like a good joke where it's like, I can't believe I paid $5 for this. 5? I had to pay 10!
And then all the new elements they introduce, expanding out of Bikini Bottom, are just so, like, interesting and well done.
Yeah.
The use of King Neptune and Plankton's scheme and Dennis, the motorcycle guy, the Goofy Goober shit. Ugh.
You better swim.
We watched this movie because I bought it at a flea market because I've never actually owned this movie. I've just watched it because it comes on Nickelodeon all the frickin' time.
Because they know it's based.
Yeah, because it's an hour and a half of free SpongeBob content
without having to just flood the channel with SpongeBob episodes.
Yeah, and a lot of it's just
so good.
It's just so
if
well.
You need us to tell you that this movie is
the
good,
David
what are you doing?
And then when they go,
it.
the David Hasselhoff bit single-handedly gave David Hasselhoff an extra 20 years of cultural relevance.
The control.
He would not be referenced in Guardians of the Galaxy 2 without this movie extending his relevancy.
They'd be referencing like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, or something like that. And the Shell City scene is genuinely emotional. Like, it establishes so quickly, like, okay, here are the life or death stakes in this scene. And then you watch SpongeBob and Patrick have, like, an emotional, like, death scene, basically. And then, I'm a goofy goober, yeah! It's also, in true SpongeBob fashion, really, really funny.
Oh,
Patrick is, like, at top form in this movie. Yeah. I honestly don't think there's a single episode where Patrick is funnier than he is in this, movie. He has so many good lines in this movie.
Can I have everyone's attention, please? I need to use the restroom.
I love his line in the middle of the emotional climax scene in Shell City, where SpongeBob's like, I guess it's true what everyone said about us, and he just goes,
You mean that we're attractive?
It's so out of pocket. Nobody calls them attractive in the whole movie. I guarantee he was calling himself I guarantee
he was
imagining Mindy calling him attractive, and then it just came Patrick's so weirdly horny in this movie too, which adds to
Did you see my underwear?
No.
Did you want to?
He's at top form in this movie. Plankton is great too in this movie. SpongeBob, of course. It's the SpongeBob movie. What more do you want to say? It's better than any movie like this should be, really.
Yeah.
Like, you think TV show adapted to movie, I'm not sure it's ever going to be topped like this. And then the final climax with the Goofy Goober song is just iconic cinema. Cinema. Kino.
This is Kino. You know what else is Kino?
Looney Tunes Back in Action is certainly a lot more Kino than fucking...
Well, it was made for theaters.
Yes, I was gonna say it's a lot more Kino than Space Jam 2: A New Legacy. Looney Tunes Back in Action, if Chip and Dale...
It's more of a Looney Tunes movie than it is like a commercial movie.
Yeah.
So I think they
pretty much only use Looney Tunes, because there's a brief moment where Shaggy and Scooby are interacting with Matthew Lillard's Shaggy, and Shaggy's animated Shaggy is berating live action Shaggy.
You made me sound like a space cadet, man! But you better not goof on me in the sequel!
But almost everything they use is Looney Tunes characters.
Yeah.
This movie, the only thing that holds this movie back from greatness for me is that
it drags a little.
It drags because they have a spy plot going on and a Looney Tunes plot going on. The two plots intersect very well. This isn't a case of two movies awkwardly shoved together. It's more a case of the spy stuff is not as interesting as the Looney Tunes stuff, and they give a lot of time.
It takes up as much, if not more time than the Looney Tunes
I think it takes up about the same. They're pretty good at balancing it time-wise. It's just because you have both going on this is a pretty long movie.
Yeah.
Because they didn't want to skimp on anything.
No.
Which I appreciate, but it does make the movie feel a little long, even though I don't think it runs over too. I think it's shorter than Space Jam 2.
It's probably shorter than Space Jam 2.
But it still just feels...
It definitely feels shorter
It does
Jam
feel...
2.
Space Jam 2 drags so long. This movie just drags like an extra 10 minutes, I think.
Yeah.
And it doesn't drag as much as I remember it dragging when I first watched it. I love the Acme Corporation, run by Steve Martin, doing
his best,
his most Austin
Dr.
Powers.
Evil.
Because it's one part Looney Tunes movie and one part Austin Powers-esque spy parody.
Yeah.
And the two do mix weirdly well together. I think because the villain is the Acme Corporation, and it's basically Steve Martin's character sending different Looney Tunes after Daffy and Bugs and Brendan
I
Fraser.
want the blue monkey.
The blue monkey. The blue monkey thing, Diamond, is also reminiscent of the Pink Panther movie that came out around the same time, starring Steve Martin. I feel like he's doing a weird in-between of that character and Dr. Evil.
Yeah.
Like he's like found the middle ground of them, and he's doing both. And it works very well. His performance is so handy. Even just the way he walks around is like weird.
Everyone in this is like playing it up.
And that's what I like about... There's a subtle Looney Tunesization of this movie where the more the movie goes along, the more all the live action elements become loonier.
Yeah.
Like, which never
Brendan
happened.
Fraser just starts as just like a kind of goofy stuntman / security guard.
Which is something that is missing from even the original Space Jam.
Yeah.
I would argue is missing that incremental scaling
I think
of
it's
looniness.
not to be rude, but I think it's because Michael Jordan couldn't act very
Yeah.
well. So they didn't want to. They couldn't convey the idea that he was becoming more loony.
Whereas Brendan Fraser is perfect for that kind of thing. It's still recording. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that was, but we're going to keep talking until it stops. I really like... Also, Daffy and Bugs' characterization is very...
It's very on character.
I like that they're having it has similar to Chip and Dale actually, where it starts out with the characters kind of breaking off, but this movie does it so much better.
Almost immediately there,
Like Bugs,
almost immediately it's like, nah, we need each other.
Bugs knows that from the beginning. It's just Daffy being Daffy, and he's very Daffy in this movie. I think this is like. You mentioned it when we were watching the movie. You're like, I wonder if this inspired any of the 2010 Looney Tunes show dynamic.
Because it's a lot of Bugs and Daffy like interacting just with each other, not like trying to slapstick each other to death.
There's not that much slapstick.
It's a lot of like them talking.
Yeah,
which is still very funny. But it makes me wonder, like, did this inspire?
It reminds
the Looney
me
Tunes
of
show?
the dynamic of that later show.
Yeah, where it's like they're not neither of them like hate
where
each
Bugs
other.
and Daffy aren't even really rivals. They're kind of just sort of antagonistic friends.
Yeah.
Like those two friends that bicker all the time, almost like Sean and Gus and Psych or something.
Right.
Where like they're just like the two friends that
they
bicker
get along
all the time,
they get
but
along.
they're ride or die.
They ride or die and they get along, but they sometimes fight and argue. Which is mostly just there for laughs.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think of other things that I like about this movie.
I like Brendan Fraser's acting.
Yeah. Brendan Fraser has such a unique, like, himbo charm that no other big actor has ever replicated. And you see it in every project he's in. It's just like...
We lost...
He's coming back. He's coming back.
The Return of the King!
I feel like I do want to watch Doom Patrol at some point. That's the first show where I was hearing about him coming back. Is like, Brendan Fraser's really good in Doom Patrol.
Oh wow, he was in Doom Patrol?
Yeah, that's where I was first hearing about the show. Was just like, oh, Doom Patrol's really good and it's got Brendan Fraser in it as like one of the characters. I feel like that's like a springboard point for the Brendan Fraser, the Renaissance or whatever.
Yeah. This is so weird, but like
the only person I feel like who has even close to the same energy that Brendan Fraser brings to his movies is kind of Matthew McFadden.
Yeah, Matthew McFadden in... Oh my god, that's right. We finished watching Succession Season 3. I guess we can talk about that after we talk about our movies instead
I thought
of...
we already talked about it. No, because we
because
talked about it a lot with each other.
Well, and also we talked about Succession with Jack like a week ago, last time we recorded, but we hadn't finished the season yet, so we have to talk about the big... But we can do that after the movies to inflate our viewing time. Whereas if we had talked about it at the beginning, Jack would have clicked on the video and watched just that. Now he has to watch all of it. Or he can just fast forward to the end. But that's more work for him. But no, yes, Brendan Fraser, and I've pointed this out when we've watched Succession, is that Matthew McFadden as Tom, his American accent is Brendan Fraser-esque, which is interesting.
Wow, Greg.
There was some line in this movie, in Looney Tunes Back in Action, that sounded very much like Tom. Like, just the vocal cadence was like
I think
Brendan
Fraser was like talking to like Daffy when he got into his house. He's like, I don't think I made it clear. Get out!
Yeah. The way he interacts with the Looney Tunes, mostly Daffy, is also very good.
Yeah.
And it looks good, too. Like,
yeah.
This movie also uses 3D animation techniques on the Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
But it doesn't do it in such a jarring way.
I think they're CG models that they then drew over.
See, yeah, I think that's the difference. I think the difference is that because they're Looney Tunes have never really had one animation style they've been locked to, so they can adapt.
Like there's the old style, then there's the Chuck Jones style, then there's like the modern style.
Whereas Chip and Dale was trying to take classic 2D animated style and cell shade it into 3D.
And
it just didn't work because, frankly, they don't have those 2D artists anymore.
Yeah,
and
I bet they don't even have like any of the character sheets anymore.
And their CG team is not up to the task. Of doing it.
Maybe if they got the A team, they might have been up to the task.
But the team they got for their direct to streaming like internet hype movie is not the team that would be necessary to really make that look good.
Yeah.
So it's like if Chip and Dale's a 5, Looney Tunes Back in Action is
6.5 or 7.
Yeah, a high 6, almost to 7. I think you shave 10 minutes off of the movie, and it's like a solid 7.
Yeah.
Now we get to the best one of them all, the crowned king of live action animation hybrids. It's still Who Framed Roger Rabbit. It's insane how good the movie looks.
It's like 30 years later.
The shading. There's so many scenes where the lighting is dark and like
it reflects realistically on the 2D characters.
And the live action characters and animated characters physically interact so much, and it never looks.
No, it never. Yeah.
Well, you don't even think about it. You're just slipped in, and it's like, oh yeah, these exist in the same space.
You never doubt, you never doubt for a second that Roger Rabbit and Bob Hoskins are interacting.
And I think really it's because they didn't have CGI to fall back on. They had to put in the work.
They had to
make
physically build like rigs and shit.
They had to give every part of it so much thought. And no other movie that's been done with this style has had to put in that level of thought, which is a shame because that level of thought is what's necessary to like make this look as good as it does. The only times it ever looks even slightly off are when animated characters are carrying live action things, and those live action things are clearly on strings.
So they kind of like
move in weird ways and float in their hand. But that could be, if CGI tech was even slightly available at that time, they could have fixed that.
Yeah.
This could be done to this level with CG. I'm not saying it's not impossible to do.
It's just that you just need to put in
it's just that it requires an insane amount of effort and thought.
You have to physically restrict yourself from using all of the power that CG can give you to focus on doing it like the way they did.
Yeah.
Where it's like, no, we're gonna build rigs and models and have like actors that act out the things that the Looney Tunes are going to do, and then we're going to use that as reference to model the character.
And unfortunately, that level of effort just
No.
will never be put in again for a project like this. In the modern movie blockbuster age, there's just no way that a project as relatively niche as Who Framed Roger Rabbit could get that much time and attention.
Yeah,
I don't even know how niche the movie was when it came out, but
I mean, Robert Zemeckis got it, and he just finished Back to the Future.
So it's not like it's that niche, but it is like...
There's no way that Disney would ever greenlight another Roger Rabbit.
Especially one so,
risque
deeply it's seeped into... It's a true noir movie.
There's sex, there's violence, there's murder, there's crime.
Yeah.
There's
smoking, there's drinking.
There's gray morality.
Yeah. It's a true noir movie.
The only thing it's lacking that other noir movies have is that it's not shot in black and white.
Yeah. But I feel like the color scheme does a great...
No, I prefer that it's not in black and white.
I think it being in black and white would create a much weirder contrast with the cartoons. There would be almost too much contrast between the colorful tunes and the live action stuff.
Yeah.
It's the lighting in this movie is excellently done to the point where it doesn't need to be black and white because it has noir lighting that is good enough that it creates that contrast they want you to have between wacky Toontown and noir elements.
Eddie's the classic sort of hard-boiled, grizzled detective who's seen so much shit and is just one bottle away from getting his foot in the grave.
But the tonal balance is always really good because the movie never wants you to take Eddie Oscar level seriously.
No, everyone in this movie is taking it seriously, but they're not but they know what they're working with. It's supposed to be a comedy.
The cartoon comedy doesn't detract from the noir by making it less serious, but the noir also doesn't play it so serious that it drags the comedy down or makes the cartoons feel out of place.
It's the contrast.
The tone is perfectly balanced.
Yeah,
as all
things should be.
And the mystery is so interesting too.
Yeah, it's a genuinely good mystery because it starts out who killed Marvin Acme? Well, it's probably Roger. But wait, what's this about a will? There's a will that's missing. That's probably important. And then it all starts to unravel where it's okay, so it's not about who killed Marvin Acme. It's where's the will? What's the will say? What's this all about?
Who's controlling Toontown? And they set it up so early. I was going to get a drink when we were only a few scenes in, and you were like, the red car's been bought, and I was like, I don't remember what that is because I haven't seen this in a while.
But I was
but it's an important piece of information.
Yeah, because it's everybody's trying to get Toontown, but also in the background, all of this public transit that people have been relying on is suddenly disappearing. How do those two threads interact? And then in the finale, you find out how.
Yeah, the world is. I mean, just like the animation, the world is so much more... The world is thought out at a level that none of these other kinds of movies have thought out to this degree.
It's Toons exist. They are a sort of almost oppressed class of people, but they are entertainers, they're actors, they're entertainers. They do a lot of the stuff that real people couldn't do.
Mm-hmm. And because they don't obey the laws of physics, they've never had to worry about law and order. To them, it's a foreign concept. And so there's this contrast between there's the villain who is a Judge Doom, and who's the second you introduce him, his name is Judge Doom. You know he's going to be an antagonist somehow, but not in a way of Chip and Dale introducing Sweet Pete and telling you what the whole mystery is going to be.
No. He keeps the cards close to his chest until the very end.
And Judge Doom is up to something, but you don't know how it connects to everything.
Christopher Lloyd does such a great job with this. I love all the subtleties in his performance. How even in his introduction, you can tell there's something off with this guy. He
doesn't move quite right.
He doesn't move like a normal human would, but he also doesn't... He acts when you know the twist that he's a Toon... Spoilers.
Spoilers.
When you know the twist that he's actually a Toon in disguise, all of his performance makes sense because it's a toon playing a human.
Yeah.
So all of his moves are weirdly like
He
stiff
moves
and
like
robotic.
he's constantly trying to hold back his manic energy.
And sometimes it like bleeds through.
Yeah.
Like one of the ways that it always bleeds through is that like he has these very defined pearly white teeth.
Yeah. And I don't know whether those are a prosthetic or whether they drew over his actual teeth or whether he just really cleaned his teeth.
But like it's so unnerving. Like everybody talks about how scary his eyes are. For me, it was always his
His
teeth.
eyes are behind the sunglasses most of the time to sort of hide how artificial they look.
Yeah.
You have to really be looking at his eyes to notice.
But for me,
how
it's the teeth. It's
the teeth are front and center.
Because like every time he
unnatural.
opens his mouth, you're like, that's scary. And then like when he smiles, it's like, ooh.
Yeah. His Christopher Lloyd is one of the like top character actors.
And then as his plans start to be found out and he starts to unravel, he becomes more and more toon-like.
Yeah. Yeah, and even the way he interacts with his weasel henchmen, how he's like, don't go toon mode, babe. Like they're not allowed to allow, like he reins them in. There's this weird like, if there's a racism allegory going on here, which they're kind of, it's not a one-to-one.
He's like a race trader who's trying to present as white.
Yeah.
It's not like one-to-one.
It's not doing a one-to-one.
Which is probably smart, because that would be
because then
that would be too
it would
dramatic
date the movie
kids.
and like
it would date the movie.
I don't know.
And it would make it feel awkward to laugh at the characters.
Yeah. Well,
because then you would be laughing at in-universe minorities.
Yeah. And I'm just not a fan of those kinds of one-to-one allegories. Like, that's why I don't really like Zootopia very much, because the allegory feels too one-to-one, and it just creates a bunch of weird questions. Yeah. This movie is not doing enough of a... It's not even more of an allegory, it's more commentary on racism.
Yeah.
Done through this Toontown.
Like, there's one very subtle moment that I really like, where it's like,
Eddie?
R.K. Maroon.
Oh, yeah.
R.K. Maroon is like, hey, Jessica works at the Ink and Paint Club, a strictly humans-only affair.
Yeah.
Because toons are not considered patrons.
Yeah.
You can be an entertainer, but you can't be a customer.
It's a very subtle, like, segregation-esque kind of reference thing that comments on it,
or the way that like humans go gaga when they see Jessica, but most toons don't seem that like, at her, because she's more attractive to the human eye than she would be to like the
she's
toon
drawn
eye.
to be attractive to the human.
But she's also drawn in such a way that
her proportions are not realistic at all.
And they're not unrealistic in a way that's like that looks uncomfortable for her. They're unrealistic in a way that it's like,
oh,
that's a cartoon character. That's what an animator would draw when he's horny.
Yeah. She's a great character.
She's a great character.
You never really know what's going on. Like, you're never sure if she's actually the femme fatale or if she's actually trying to help.
And then at the very end, it's like, oh no, that's the subversion is, oh no, you think she's the femme fatale who cares about no one but herself, but actually she's the devoted wife who would go to the ends of the earth to protect her husband.
Yeah.
Which is such an interesting contrast because, like, I don't know if that was a big twist back then, but like that's such an interesting contrast with like she's this beautiful, beautiful, seductive dame, but she's also a devoted mother.
A modern remake of this movie would try to make her girl boss.
No. She's girl boss
in a way. In a way that would be really unorganic and
she'd be very confrontational about sexualizing her.
Yeah. And in this movie, she's not confrontational about it. She doesn't revel in it, but she's not confrontational about it. She just accepts it as like a part of her, like
a part of her existence.
Yeah.
She's literally like, I'm not bad. I'm just drawn that way.
Yeah.
It's just who I am.
In a very
sexually charged scene.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of very pulpy scenes in this, but that works
because it helps continue the noir tone because the noir stories are very adult in their sort of themes about sex and violence.
If anything, the use of such a pulpy genre helps to allow cartoons to be like you wouldn't think. Oh, noir story with cartoons implemented.
Well, because another thing is that like. Noir stories can be really fucking ridiculous sometimes. Yeah. So they play into that by adding the cartoon.
A toon killed my brother. he dropped a piano on my head. That's somehow a moment that is both funny, but
And
also
very-
like completely like.
And it would make sense, and like it makes sense.
You
with
buy
where
the emotional reality of it, even though it's a funny.
and it makes
scenario.
sense where that character ends up.
Yeah.
Because he starts out as like this fun-loving, goofy cop,
The way
but
they
then he doesn't even hate tunes anymore.
he just can't find them funny anymore because
Because-
he's like traumatized.
Yeah,
Like he's like, oh, the tunes, I can't be around this. It makes me like upset.
yeah. And like, there's a really great moment of him like when he's about to go back into Toontown, where he like pours out a bottle of whiskey
Yeah.
and
He
like
brings out his tune gun that he's been holding on to. I love the way that before his brother's death, he was a cop that helped Tunes.
there's a
and
really great like
the sequence where he's in his office drinking and they do a long shot pan around all these different news articles and photos. That sequence tells you everything you need to know about his relationship with his sort of girlfriend, his relationship with his brother, his identity as a cop before his brother's death versus after, and the cases that he was involved with helping Tunes.
How he
died.
used to be the guy that if you're a tune in trouble, you turn to Valiant and Valiant.
Yeah, it gives you all of that information without having to say
Not
any
a
of it
single
out loud.
line of dialogue.
It's just visuals.
Yeah.
Ugh. Who Framed Roger Rabbit is so good, and
It's so
watching
good.
it.
Also,
really,
it's just genuinely funny.
yes, it is.
Like there's some really good gags.
Watching it really highlights like Chip and Dale by being a detective movie
Does itself a disservice
because it invites comparisons to Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and in those comparisons, it fails at every turn.
Yeah.
Like it's just not even. It's so not comparable that inviting those comparisons just dumbs down, just makes a movie that would otherwise be a very like. Watching Chip and Dale, you're like, oh, this is a fine. If you watched it in isolation without knowing anything about Who Framed Roger Rabbit or any other movie like this, you would probably think it was pretty good. You'd be like, you might even be able to say, wow, that was like really awesome. But if you watch it and then watch Who Framed Roger Rabbit,
Or even Looney Tunes Back in Action.
Looney Tunes Back in Action, it just seems so
You're like, wow.
milk with toast by comparison.
Wow, this is so much. Wow, why wasn't Chip and Dale like this?
Yeah, this is so much better.
Yeah.
That being said, all of these movies are still better than Space Jam 2.
We're just gonna
exercise Space Jam 2 again.
Yeah.
Chip and Dale's not worth exercising.
No.
But wait, let's talk about Succession first. Succession.
Bum.
Oh my god. Abrupt transition to something that has nothing to do with our topic. Oh my god. The Tom.
Shit.
We watched the last 2 episodes. Spoiler
Huge
alert!
spoiler.
Massive spoiler alert! If you
you're
have
not-
not finished Succession, skip to the Exorcism
Yes.
right now.
We're timestamp.
Timestamps right now.
Number on screen.
Major spoilers.
Holy shit.
Oh my god! It's such a subtle, Okay, the last episode just has an absolute barrage stuff. You see that funny moment where Roman accidentally sends the dick pic to his dad instead of Jerry.
Oh, that was the second to last episode.
Was it? Okay. These episodes, a lot of times, I feel like this show show is best watched in 2 episode sets because I feel like within 2 hours you get enough going on to talk about.
Well, because episode 2, the second to last episode is all about basically Roman unraveling. He was gonna be the golden boy, and then he
Logan poised him to be
and Logan realized
this
asshole has no idea what he's doing.
You don't realize when the dick pic moment happens just how much it's going to trigger not only Roman's downfall but everyone else's downfall.
Yeah.
Because that is the deciding incident that makes Logan go, none of my kids are fit to run this company. It just takes everything in such a hilarious way. That scene is wild. You see him pull out his phone, you see him sending this dick pic, you're like, what are you doing? If you're watching very closely, you notice the name at the top of the phone screen that says Dad, which I noticed just before he put the phone down. I'm like, holy shit.
Didn't, and I kept thinking oh god, Jerry's gonna pull it up, and there's a person from Matson behind him,
and they were gonna see it. You didn't see that, and I didn't want to say anything because I saw it so briefly that I was like, my brain was like, holy shit, did that say dad? I'm going to shut up now and see how this plays out. And they delay it just long enough to let anybody who saw it gain a sense of panic. As they pan over to Jerry's phone, it doesn't vibrate.
And then you hear another
phone vibrate.
And immediately you're just like,
pan over to Logan.
You go, your brain goes nightmare mode where he's like, if he didn't send it to Jerry, oh fuck, he probably sent it to.
He probably sent it to his dad. And then you pan over to Logan, and Logan just says, he does what he never does in this whole show, and stops a business meeting to be like, we need to take a second, which he's never done in the history of the show, and he never would normally, which shows how monumental this moment is.
Oh, there's a great visual gag in this episode too, where like they're doing like a boardroom meeting, and they're like, we need to talk about the investigation. So Logan and
oh my God,
Kendall are recusing themselves, and then it pans over to Logan in another room.
First they do the gag of Kendall's not going to be here, and then you hear Kendall on the phone going, actually I am here. And then they say Logan is not allowed to be in here, and you pan over and see him standing outside looking like he's ready to punch through the window so he can get back into the room. The show is just firing up, like
it's firing
on all cylinders. I can't even imagine how crazy season 4 is going to be now that basically, again, spoilers if you for some reason haven't already stopped watching, the entire family is out of the running. Yeah. Logan has kicked them out of it. He sold the company to a tech billionaire type.
Yeah.
And he's now going to be working with that guy and presumably with Tom.
Because Tom it's not stated outright that Tom is the one who sold them out, but Tom is the one who sold them out.
The betrayal is so brilliant because whenever Kendall has done betrayal, because last season ended with a Kendall betrayal, whenever Kendall betrays, it's done in the most, look at me, I'm being a rebel son, give me attention kind of way, which is very in line with Kendall's character.
Just comes
when Tom does it, it's sneaky. It's in the background.
You want to make a deal with the devil?
Yeah. They have a scene of him talking to Greg saying, will you join me? And that makes it clear Tom is going to do something big. Yeah. And then in the end scene, after Logan trumps his family with his ultimate ace in the hole of, and they set that up so brilliantly.
Because the whole season,
the whole season, or especially the last 2 episodes, they're like, oh, he's negotiating divorce agreements with his wife, and you think, oh, it's because she's getting married, and that is part of it.
Yeah.
But
that's what opened it up.
The smash revealed it. Oh, I talked with her. She's writing you out of the shareholder position. You don't have the trump card you think you have, and now I'm taking over from you.
If you had only kept your mouth shut. You could have been part of this.
And then, after that bomb drop, he walks out of the room, and Tom walks in, and he pats Tom on the shoulder, and then Tom just walks in and goes up to his wife like, is everything all right?
Hand on both shoulders, but his face is out of frame.
And her face is in frame, knowing that she's like, somebody had to have told Logan we were coming. Who's the only person that could have? Tom, because I told Tom everything. She tells Tom everything, not expecting that the Tom and Greg takeover is happening!
You can't make a Tomlet without breaking a few Roys!
We were jumping around and screaming.
I have been on the Tom train since day one. I said, when we first started this show, Tom is going to be the one who sneaks up and steals it all.
If you've watched us talking about this show before, you know how big Tom and Greg heads we are.
And also, Greg going from dating Comfrey?
Greg is using Comfrey as a dating ladder to date a Duchess, and then that scene, that hilarious scene in the wedding where he's talking to the Duchess, then where he's talking to the Duchess on his right side, and then somebody on his left side leans over, and the camera pans over, and you see Comfrey sitting on the other side of him. Greg and Tom are becoming Giga Chads. Let's go! Let's go! All right, now we can exercise Space Jam 2 again.
I'll go get the Cats DVD.
See, this is a short one, but it's not too short. We're still in like the 50-minute mark.
Honestly, I prefer episodes that are like only around an hour long.
Yeah, I don't mind
We need to stop making 3-hour videos.
I mean, we've never made a 3-hour one. Also, this may be the last FEARcast we do in this house, in this apartment, by the way. We're looking for new apartments, so it could be R.I.P. the dungeon office exorcism room and the the wall of One Piece posters we can recreate at our new apartment.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of an essential background detail at this point.
Space Jam 2. Every time I think of you, you become worse and worse.
You are bringing
and worse.
upon us the ad-apocalypse of ad movies.
This is Chip and Dale's existence is your fault, and while that movie is better than you, are not.
Without Space Jam 2, Chip and Dale would probably be better.
You
Without
are the
this
reason Chip and Dale sucks.
You are the reason ad movies exist.
What do you have to say before I strike you down and plunge you from the earth? Was there even a famous Space Jam 2 line?
No, I don't remember a single.
What have I done?
That which wasn't even a line. It was like one Looney Tunes gag.
Be banished from this plane.
Again!
Avasti!
This movie now earns the unique honor of being the only movie we've exercised twice on the Fear podcast.
Not even.
Because it's
the Feebles was that bad.
Because its menace energy is so immaculate that the demon keeps coming back. Every time more ad...
How many times do we need to teach you this lesson?
Every time more ad movies come out and we have to talk about them, we're going to end up exercising this one again.
Yeah.
Unless somehow they make one that's even worse, which I shudder to imagine.
Oh boy.
Because Fear!